Really should learn French. La Fourche, I would imagine. I'd like to ask if you have ever noticed church leaders and members act like neutered cats. What do you mean, licking them, slicking their private parts on the couch in the afternoon sun? I've never seen that. Most church leaders I know aren't that flexible. Well, let's read on. So for the last X years, we had and continue to have these models of men to be molded after them. God bless you. When Wellman said he's depressed about the church services he attended or the mediocre sermons and so on, well, I thought about this particular thing along with other ones, which is not rightly exclusive in the evangelical realm. But that is not highlighted enough or at all. Have you ever succeeded in making neutered cats yourself? Or lions, you said. I love the imagery of your question. Why is it that the church can turn wine to water? Yeah, my conversation with Wellman, boy, what a conversation. That was really good. We're going to do it again. Wellman enjoyed it. Tripp enjoyed it. I thought it went well. But he was very transparent and honest about his disappointment with church. And so much of what we deal with, as Tripp was right, so much of what we deal with here is disappointment with church. And, the former Catholic, now Orthodox, who was sexually abused by a priest. He finally, he's got some absolute screeds about the Roman Catholic Church. He's just angry and furious with what's happened in the church. And, there's plenty of trad Catholics out there. And I have a heart for people who have been let down by the church. And in my conversation with Clay and John Van Donk, I thought John Van Donk's reflections on the reasons why he went into the ministry, I thought that was so honest, and I respect him for being transparent like that. There is a liability in professional Christian ministry, as there is, I think, I better be careful with that. That we don't sufficiently, familiarity breeds a lack of holy fear. I'll say it that way. You find this with electricians. Electricians that get very comfortable with always dealing with electricity sometimes get killed from it. Why? Because at some point they lost a healthy respect for the terms by which they served. Churches get cynical. Churches get corrupt. Jesus' parables that deal with this deal with servants when the master is gone for a long time. And we humans, if something is away from us for a long time, it gets unreal to us. And so Jesus admonishes his followers, when the master is gone, you'd still better be faithful, because it's his house and he's coming back. The doctrine of the second coming of Christ is almost always one of the first things to go in corrupt modernity. I don't believe Jesus is coming back. Oh. Okay. Sounds like just, when Kurt Jamungle says, well, something sort of in the middle. Well, yeah. Well, maybe. But how is that going to impact your faithful service? Very quickly, the eschatological point begins to move. You know, it's been interesting that the belief in the surprise second coming has fueled in the church, right from its start, kind of an anxious anticipation of, let's say, you look at Dr. Seuss's Cat in the Hat and you wonder, what all were you thinking about when Mother gets home in the Cat in the Hat? Because Jesus very much with his parables sets his church up to say, we'd better be ready when Jesus comes back, because we want to be those servants who have been faithful in doing his will. Let's say that all sort of slips away because the Bible and the story gets very mythological. It becomes very perennial. Psychologically, certain things start to slip. And whereas I know it's a subject of mockery. Oh, you Christians are always thinking Jesus is coming back. Yeah. And those who keep watch over the flood control measures in Sacramento do so because one of these years, the heavens are going to open over the Sierra, and Sacramento is going to fill up like a bowl. You know, the Germans, I was reading articles this morning about Germany and the state of the German military. You know, Germany, who in this 20th century built the most impressive military machines, now, you know, when Ukraine asked for help, they sent like 3,000 helmets. And Ukraine was like, "Are you serious?" And the Germans are like, you know, when they had to mobilize troops and material to send to what may be the front in Poland and Romania, Germany's scrambling around for working parts. And it's like, yeah. And then suddenly a whole bunch of things appear on Twitter with Trump basically excoriating the Germans, saying, "You haven't done your part." Well, that's because, you know, to keep pouring money into the army because the Russians are coming, all that stuff, it's so behind us. They ain't thinking that now. Oh, they're going to stop with Ukraine. Yeah, you hope. Oh, the U.S. will be there. Well, you know, Trump wasn't elected by that much, wasn't defeated by that much, but how much longer will Americans be willing to send their children to Europe to die defending your country? Trump voiced that. He wasn't voicing nothing. So there's a lot that goes into these neutered cats. And I think that's part of it. We're very responsive to threat, whether it's threats of damnation or threats of shame. If our Lord returns and he finds that we just haven't been taking the whole thing seriously. I didn't think you were coming back. I didn't think I'd ever have to meet you. Accountability is a very real thing in terms of human psychology. No, the church in the West is weak in ways that churches in the developing world are not. Churches in the developing world have some of their own problems, don't get me wrong. But we don't take it very seriously. And that's a problem. And that's what you're pointing to. This is what Tom Holland was pointing to at the beginning of the pandemic. He said, We don't need the National Institute. We don't need churches just mimicking the talking points of the National Institute of Health. We have them. If you're not going to do anything, why are you taking up space, and why should I pay attention to you? And so when James Wellman says, they just kind of echo the progressive talking points. But none of the progressives imagine that the church, they're much more eager to elect their politicians than worried about who's going to be in their little meeting. When my daughters were young, they used to have the Panda Club, and they do these little fundraisers because they were worried about the extinction of the pandas, and so they raised, I don't know, when they finally quit doing it, they might have $75, $80 that they had raised all their little things, and they still have the Panda Club money. They have to figure out who to send it to, but a lot of people look at the church like the Panda Club. Now, it was just adorable to watch my daughters sell lemonade and worry about the pandas, and they're little girls. They're they're expressing care for the pandas and for the world, and good on them. And when they'd have a little fundraiser, I'd make my little contribution, because you should care about the world, the pandas and the other animals. It's what little girls should do. But when the church becomes sort of Panda Club for grown-ups, people are like, it's not serious. So